Toronto Maple Leafs have made multiple interesting moves ahead of tonight's big game, and one of these is something that no Leafs fan expected. We're going to break that down as well as discuss some major injury updates surrounding Pacioretty, as well as what the lines look like ahead of tonight's big game. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content, so make sure to smash that subscribe button. And thank you guys again for your continued support. But Darius, there's a lot to go over, and also, we will be live following tonight's game, so make sure to tune into that. But there's a lot of things going on now. Obviously, they play tonight and against the Columbus Blue Jackets, but some moves are being made. There's some injury updates. So there's a lot of things to go over today. Let's dive into it now. We're going to start with the interesting move here. The Maple Leafs have recalled Jacob Quillan from the Toronto Marlies. So Jacob Quillan is a very interesting name, and now they have recalled him. No one expected this, to put it quite frankly. But Darius, I want to get your thoughts on this move. Jacob Quillan is up with the Leafs.
It's a sneaky call up right here, and I don't think he's actually going to get into the game tonight or maybe ever. It might just be him sticking around with the team to, see what it's like to be in the NHL from day to day, get the NHL paycheck, stuff like that. But it's an interesting, sneaky call up, I'll call it. If he ends up getting into a game in, down the stretch here against Ottawa, we don't know how long, Pacioretty's going to be out for, which we'll get to in a second. So that could be really affect things as well. But again, I don't think he's going to get into the lineup. And I think this call up again is just to get him around the guys in the NHL, see what it's like, because he's had a sneaky good season with the Marlies this year. He's putting up some decent points so far. I think he has 15 points in 35 games or something like that. So, making the jump to pro, that's not bad at all. And, you would have thought that if they were going to use a guy from the Marlies, maybe it's Alex Steves or somebody like that. But for the time being, I mean, again, I think they're just calling him up to get him acclimated to the NHL, see what it's like to be in the NHL from day to day, and just stuff like that. So I think that's all that is, because he doesn't seem like he's certainly not in the projected lineup tonight. So it should be interesting to see if he gets into a game in the next couple here.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned, we've seen a lot of call-ups this season, whether it be Alex Nylander, Alex Steves, and now Jacob Quillan. You can add him to the list. Let us know down below. Do you think he's going to play for the Leafs? He's not going to play tonight in all likelihood, but maybe they factor him in. But at the very least, he gets the NHL paycheck. He gets to be around the guys, and it's a good experience for any Marley, especially when you have some spots open. But speaking of what made this move possible, is that the Leafs have placed Max Pacioretty on the IR retroactive to 4 days ago, so January 18th, which is not a great sign, though. I think at the end of the day, they're going to be super cautious with Max Pacioretty. Get your thoughts on this here, Darius. I mean, ultimately, Pacioretty obviously went down with the injury. He's a veteran, we'll say, and he was never going to play a ton of games. We saw they've been, even when healthy, they've been resting him a little bit more as of late, not playing him, of course, in back-to-backs, but even giving him some rest for a couple games here and there, not a full week, but throughout the week. So now to see him on the IR, I'm hoping it's nothing serious. I wouldn't say it is. They're just going to be very cautious, especially with the Four Nations Cup coming up and the All-Star break around the corner.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and it sounds like he could make a return after Saturday's game, but will that be possible? We don't know, right? We don't know what the extent of his injury right now. I'm sure we'll get some more news on that, as the week goes on. And again, Craig Berube had nothing to say really, it's just day to day at this point. So he could return early next week at this point. We don't know exactly, or longer the day to day. I mean, but week to week, he could return next week, early next week, right after the Ottawa Senators game. So very interesting. I never want to see somebody hurt, right? But I can't say I didn't see some of this coming with the Max Pacioretty signing, where he was going to miss some games, he was going to be a healthy scratch, he was going to miss games due to injury. Like, we saw this coming. So this is just part of the process. He's probably dealing with something here. He's playing a more tough style, like that he really hasn't played in his career. He's filling a role for the Leafs this year, so he's playing a different style, and he's older, and he's just gone through a bunch of injuries himself for the last couple of years. So can't say I didn't really expect too much of this to happen over the course of the season, but it doesn't sound like it's anything that's going to keep him out long term, which is important because he's going to play a big role for the Leafs in the playoffs as well. So that is good news on that front. But again, he's going to miss a couple games, but I think we expected this. That's why the Leafs shored up their depth. They have other options that they can bring in as well. John Tavares is still out, right? Holmberg's going to factor into the lineup tonight. So very, very interesting.
Yeah, and one of the things we've been discussing with Patches is how physical he has been, throwing his body, really doing everything right under the Craig Berube play style. And now I'm not going to blame the Craig Berube play style or anything like that. I think he wanted to play hard anyway. Unfortunate injuries happen. Again, there's no timeline. It's longer than day to day. Hopefully it's, after Saturday's game. He also didn't say it was week to week, so I would assume it's somewhere in between that. Like you mentioned there, probably mid to late next week would be an ideal thing. But again, just around the corner in mid-February is when you have the week off for the Nations Cup. So maybe they hold him out till then. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news on that. And surrounding tonight's game, a few different things to go over. So Dennis Hildeby is going to be playing. We were wondering a little bit if they were going to ride the hot hand of Joseph Wall, but it makes sense here. Give him a break. And he said in the press conference today, or in his talk with the media, that Joseph Wall has had a lot of physically demanding starts and also a lot of emotionally demanding starts, which is true. A lot of shots on goal,
Yep.
a lot of high pressure situations. So now we get to see Dennis Hildeby against a team in the Blue Jackets who aren't terrible. They're okay, and it'll be a good game to see what Dennis Hildeby can do. And quickly on Jacob Quillan, Craig Berube spoke about it. He said he's up here because he has played really well down there with the Marlies. He has been a very good player as of late. If we need him, he's available. When guys do well, they get rewarded. They come up to the NHL, which is also just a great thing for the organization in general. It makes other players want to come over. They're obviously, because the paycheck is the big thing here at the end of the day for a lot of these players who probably aren't going to be NHL regulars. So that's obviously good for Jacob Quillan. And like I said, Wall has had a lot of emotional games. And I want to get your thoughts on this because this is actually a very big start for Dennis Hildeby. The Leafs are on a winning streak. They need to continue to separate themselves in the Atlantic Division. And now against a team that is still solid, in the playoff hunt a little bit here, not quite as good as the teams they've been playing against over the past few games where Joseph Wall started the past three. It's really on Dennis Hildeby to come out and at least have a serviceable game. If he comes out and he gives up 4 goals on 22 shots or something like we've seen in the past, it would be a bit of a deflator for a lot of Leafs fans as well as the team.
Definitely. And in terms of Dennis Hildeby, what I'm looking for tonight is how does he start? Because every single start this season hasn't been good for him, right? He's had games where he'll let in a couple stinkers to start the game 5 minutes in. Then the Leafs will battle back and play their game, and then he settles in nicely. So I'm looking for his start tonight, how he starts. Not only that, very interesting storyline. They're playing Columbus, right? And when obviously earlier this season, when Joseph Wall was out of the lineup, they played Columbus. Dennis Hildeby was in net. It was one of the worst Leafs games of this season. So how does he bounce back against Columbus as well? Obviously, he's wanting to take the win. And then on the other side, on the Joseph Wall side of things, he has had a lot of, he's had a big workload since Anthony Stolarz has left, which was expected. And we wanted to see if he was up to the occasion. Clearly he is, which is a great sign, but he's playing a lot of emotional games as well. You look back to last game, it's a bit of an emotional game in that way. It was a tight game, right? So you have to be on your game. The one in Montreal, I mean, that speaks for itself. Very emotional game, and you have to be very sharp in those games. They battled back, so it takes a little bit out of you. He's playing a lot of games and a lot of nights as well. So he's been doing his job. Sounds like he feels good. He's already played over his career high in games so far this season. So they're going to need a lot more out of him still. So it's going to be interesting in that way. But give him the rest tonight. You're playing Columbus, right? You should win, right? This is not the Sheldon Keefe era anymore.
Don't jinx it
You
again.
should win. You should win this game. So I'm looking for a big performance to start the game from Dennis Hildeby because he does. We've seen it settle in nicely.
Yeah, I feel like every time you say they should win, they lose. So I'm going to go ahead and say that they need to win, not that they should win. They should also win, though. Let's be honest here.
Yep.
Now, quick thing regarding the projected lines. They didn't skate today, so these are just the projected lines. Nyes, Matthews, Marner, McMahon, Holmberg, Nylander, Domi, Minton, Robertson, Lorenz, Camfrey. So very similar, except instead of Connor Dewar, you have Ryan Reeves in there like we covered in yesterday's video with Riley McCabe, OEL Tanev, Benoit, Timmins, with, of course, Philip Myers remaining out with Hildeby starting. So a lot of exciting things to look out for in tonight's game. And most importantly, you're going to see how the big storyline for me is how Dennis Hildeby does. Because let's not forget, Anthony Stolarz now, this is one of Dennis Hildeby's, if all things go as the plan, probably one of his last starts, maybe a handful of starts, maybe 2 or 3 starts left, depending on how conservative they are with Joseph Wall before Stolarz comes back. So a lot of implications regarding that for him as well and how good he does. But that'll wrap it up. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching. See you later.